All right. So I want to talk about a very important subject, tithing. I feel like tithing is one of the most abused topics in the church world today. And tithing, it's a great thing. It's a wonderful thing. You should tithe to the work of God if you are a Christian. It blows my mind away when I hear about Christians who have been saved, born again, but they don't tithe to the work of God. And then they want to know why. Well, why am I not being blessed? Why are my bills not getting paid? Why are these things happening? God clearly states that you must tithe. You tithing keeps the destroyer away. And I'm going to go through some of my notes that I wrote down concerning tithing, what tithing is, and what tithing is not. So first off, the word tithe, it literally means 1/10 of your first fruit. When you tithe, you don't give God your second or last fruits. You don't give him what's left of your check. You give him the first of your check, the first 10%, or the first of whatever he's asking you to give. Number two, in the old covenant, tithe was 20%. In the new covenant, it's 10% tithe. I'm going to go through where some scripture where tithing was first mentioned and other places in the Bible where it's mentioned. Let's see, one second. Genesis 14, chapter 14, 18, verse 18 through 20, where Abraham paid tithe to Melchizedek, who was a type of Christ. And Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought forth bread and wine, and he was the priest of the Most High God. And he blessed him and said, Blessed be Abram of the Most High God, possessor of heaven and earth. And blessed be the Most High God, which hath delivered thine enemies into thy hand. And he gave him tithes of all. Let's see, the next mention of tithing. Malachi 3:10, it says, Bring ye all the tithes into the storehouse, that there may be meat in my house. And prove me now herewith, says the Lord of hosts, if I will not open you the windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing, that there shall not be room enough, to receive it. There's only one place in the Bible where we are allowed to test God. Nowhere else in the Bible, anywhere does it say you are to test the Lord. But he says, test me in tithing. Test me and see if I will not pour out a blessing for you. If you put God's work first, if you tithe to his work, he will bless you. Most definitely, but it has to be his work, You tithing to a church that's not preaching the message of the cross, God will not bless that. When you tithe to false doctrine and false ways, you are helping the work of Satan. You are not helping the work of God, and God cannot bless that. I hear Christians all the time, well, that was the old covenant. What about the new covenant? We don't tithe in the new covenant. That's incorrect. If you go to Galatians chapter 6, verse 7 and 9, it says this, Be not deceived, God is not mocked, for whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. For he that soweth to his flesh shall of the flesh reap corruption, but he that soweth to the Spirit shall of the Spirit reap life everlasting. And let us not be weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap if we faint not. Galatians 6, 7, verse 7, it says, Be not deceived, God is not mocked, for whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. It applies. It applies to Also, it applies to living. You know what I mean? Are we walking after the flesh? Or are we walking in the Spirit? But I also believe it applies to tithing. If you do not give to the work of God, you're not going to reap a blessing. You know what I'm saying? What's another one? Malachi 3. Oh wait, no, 1 second. I want to share one more before we move on. Malachi 3, verse 8. It says, Will a man rob God? Yea, ye have robbed me. But ye say, Wherein have we robbed thee? And excuse me. Malachi 3:8, it says, Will a man rob God? Yet ye have robbed me. But ye say, Wherein have we robbed thee? In tithes and offerings. When you do not tithe to the work of God, when you do not give to his true work, the message of the cross, you are robbing from God. You know, everything we have is from God. It's all God's. It all belongs to God. You know, we should be grateful and thankful that he allows us to use the things that he has blessed us with, you know, for our enjoyment. So, you know, when God asks us to give to his work, he's not asking much from us. It's the least we can do concerning everything else he's already done for us. I want to address now what tithing is not. Tithing is not giving your money to false doctrine, or, you know, giving to churches that are promoting false gospels. You know, a lot of churches today, they are using tithe money to buy entertainment stuff. You know what I'm saying? You go to church now, and it's not even like you're going to church. You're going to a rock concert. You're going to a rap concert. Or you're going to be entertained. That is not giving to the work of God. You do not, another subject, tithing, you do not tithe to get. Don't get me wrong, God will bless you if you tithe, but the purpose of tithing is not, oh, I'm going to tithe $100, so I'm going to get this, I'm going to get this, I'm going to get this. That's not the case. We should always tithe with a thankful heart for everything Christ has already done for us. Another thing, you know, tithing, you do not place your faith in tithing to meet your need. Christ and the cross, Christ met all of our needs at the cross, you know what I'm saying? So by us trusting in him, he promised to meet our need. Now, don't get me wrong, we should tithe, we should give to that work, but don't put your faith in tithing like, oh, you know, I have this bill I got to get paid, so if, you know, if I tithe $200, Lord, you promised to make this, to meet this need. That's not how it works. Like I said before, we don't tithe to get, we tithe out of a thankful heart for what Christ has already done for us. Another thing tithing is not. It blows my mind when I meet Christians who fall for people like this. Like, you got these false preachers out here, and I'm not going to name their names. You already know them. I don't like promoting garbage. I don't like giving free publicity to garbage. But if a preacher tells you, God told me to tell you, sow a seed for $1,000, you know, your entire mortgage is going to be paid off. That's a lie. If a preacher says that, oh, hey, you know, God told me that we need this money so we can go buy a new jet airplane, a private jet, you know, that's not of God, that's of Satan. They're liars. Do not fall for those kind of people. You know, I know true preachers of the gospel, you know, true preachers of the gospel like Donnie Swaggart, you know, he uses a commercial airplane. He uses a normal airplane like everybody else, you know. Why are these other preachers thinking they need private jets? You know what I mean? So any preacher who tells you that, he's a liar. Another thing, you know, preachers who, you know, these preachers are selling like miracle water or miracle rocks. You know what I'm saying? God told me that, you know, if you buy this miracle rock or this water, you know, it's going to bless you. That's a lie from the pit of hell. That's all to make money. We look at tithing, we look at what the work of God is according to the Bible. We tithe and we give to the work of God, promoting the message of the cross. Anyone who's promoting anything else, that's not of God. Another thing with tithing too, we tithe, but we don't, how can I put it? We don't dictate the blessing. Like, God is the one who decides what the blessing is, and that's a good thing. That's a comforting thing, because God knows what we need, and God knows us better than we know ourselves. You know, we don't give, you know, oh Lord, I tithe, so, you know, can you get me this, or can you get me that? That's not how it works. You know what I'm saying? We tithe out of a thankful heart, and He is the one who decides what the blessing is. And be assured, like, the blessing will always be great. You know, and the last thing I want to talk about with tithing is, like, I know the world system and the unsaved, they think of tithing like, oh, you know, why does the church need money? You know, and that's another thing that I don't understand. It's like, you think the church electric bill just runs off of, you know, nothing? You know, church got electric bill, church got a water bill. You know, church got staff they got to pay for doing, you know, the service in the church. Church got to promote the message of the cross. You know, it costs money to promote the gospel. I don't understand why it's hard for people to understand that. And you know, it kind of upsets me, because, you know, you get mad at a true church that needs the money to promote the gospel, but then you got people who don't mind taking their money, going to the bar, you know, going to the strip club, going to, you know, promoting ungodly things. They don't mind. They'll give all their money away to the ungodly things in the world. But when it comes to the true work of God, the actual work of God, people want to, you know, frown on that. That's not right. And the last thing I want to address is that being a Christian, you should tithe to the work of God, the true work of God. If you do not tithe to the work of God, you are robbing from God, and God will not bless you. You know, so keep that in mind. And then lastly, you know, you may ask, well, I don't know any good churches in my area to tithe to. You know, all of them are promoting false doctrine. Well, you know, I know, you know, some like Broadcasting Network. They're a good church. I'm a media member, you know. I tithe to them because I can't find a good church in my area. So, you know, I'm a media member with them. But if you know, if you're looking for a good church, you know, seek the Lord on the matter. He will lead you to the right church to attend to or to listen to. You know what I mean? The excuse of saying, you know, I don't know any good churches is not an excuse to not tithe. You know, God will lead you to the right church. So I would just say keep that in mind. And thank you for your time.